The engagement lasted 4.7 seconds. My sensors recorded everything. I am still processing what I saw. I am Voth-Serral Witness Class Unit Designation ORF-7. My function is observation, classification, predictive modeling. I have been embedded in 11 prior conflict scenarios across 6 species. My predictive accuracy rating, prior to this assignment, was 94.3%. I include this detail because it is no longer accurate, and I want the Council to understand that the error was not a malfunction. The error was the humans. I was assigned to the Terran Infantry Column, designated Hammer 6, on the 43rd day of the Keshari Corridor Campaign, on the second moon of the gas giant humans called Proteus. The moon has no name in our cartography. We did not consider it worth naming. The humans had been contesting it for 11 weeks. My sensors came online at 4:12 local time. The column was moving through a shattered processing district, factories that had manufactured extraction components before the bombardment, now just geometries of collapsed ferrocrete and exposed rebar that caught the light of the distant primary and scattered it in frequencies that required recalibration to interpret correctly. The humans moved through this environment with a kind of kinetic economy I had not observed in prior species. Low center of gravity, spaced intervals, hands-on weapons. They had done this before. My models clocked their heart rates, their cortisol signatures, the micro-expressions cycling across their faces, and the data was coherent. Fear, focus, the particular combination of the two that produces what humans call readiness. I understood readiness. I had modeled it in 6 species. The first thing I did not understand happened 90 seconds after deployment. A soldier designation Corporal Yusuf Amer, age 26, combat veteran, 2 prior tour, took a kinetic round to the left shoulder at 041344. The round was subsonic, non-lethal at that angle, and his suit's medical layer would seal the wound within 40 seconds. Standard triage protocol across every species I have observed. Continue movement, clear the kill zone, treat when in cover. The metabolic calculus is unambiguous. Stopping costs more than continuing. Amer stopped. Not to treat himself. He turned back toward the origin of fire, back toward the ruined corridor they had just cleared, and he called a name. Tors. One word, vocalized at full volume in an active engagement zone. My threat assessment subroutine flagged this as aberrant behavior and logged a priority query. Is the subject experiencing neurological compromise? He was not. His cognitive metrics were nominal. He called the name again. Tors, I've got you. Private First Class Daniela Tors had taken around 2 seconds before Amer. Her wound was non-survivable without immediate intervention. She was 15 meters behind the advance line, in the open, and every tactical model I have ever run on any species in any engagement says the same thing about 15 meters of open ground under active fire. You do not go back. Amer went back. He crossed that 15 meters at a sprint that my sensors read as maximum voluntary output. His body doing the thing evolution built it to do, fight or flight, every calorie burning at once, but he was running toward the fire, not away from it. He reached Tors. He got his arms under her. He carried her back. The wound she had sustained would have been fatal within 4 minutes without intervention. The combat medic reached her in 2. She survived. Amer was hit a second time during the extraction. The round caught his right leg. He kept moving. I filed an emergency uplink at 4:17. Predictive framework requires full rebuild. Reason, unknown. I want to be precise about what I mean when I say unknown. I do not mean I lacked data. I had complete biometric records, complete ballistic trajectory data, complete environmental mapping. I had everything. The unknown was not in the data. It was in the space between the data and the behavior, a gap my models had no architecture to bridge. What I mean is, I could not find the variable that made going back worth it. My models ran the calculus 17 times on the transit back to the forward operating base. Amer's survival probability decreased by 31% during the extraction. Tor's survival probability increased by approximately 70%. The net outcome was marginally positive by pure survival arithmetic. But that is not why he went back. I know this because I have the footage of his face during the extraction, and there is nothing in it that resembles arithmetic. What is in it is something my classification systems kept routing to the wrong folders. Not fear, not aggression, not the focused affect of a soldier executing a trained response. Something older, something my training data contains no referent for. I observed one more thing before I closed the initial log. The sergeant, a woman named Commandant First Class Priya Okonkwo, age 34, 18 years service, she had a photograph. Physical medium sealed in a laminate pouch stored in a left chest pocket directly over the heart. The photograph was 9.4 grams. It contained no tactical information. It could not stop a round. It could not signal an ally. It served no function I could identify, and she carried it into every engagement. I flagged it. I kept the flag open. I kept watching. I had 17,000 years of compiled combat data. None of it contained this. The Keshari corridor collapsed on the 51st day. A consolidation-class siege formation, 3-to-1 numerical advantage, superior fire support, entrenched positions, cut off hammersticks and 2 adjacent columns in a coordinated encirclement that my models assessed with 97% confidence. I ran 17 parallel simulations. All 17 agreed. The humans had 3 viable options. Option 1. Immediate surrender, 83% survival probability. Option 2. Defensive consolidation and wait for relief, 61% survival probability, contingent on relief arriving within 6 hours, which my logistics models rated at 22% likelihood. Option 3. Breakout attempt through the consolidation's northwestern flank, where a structural weakness in their line offered a corridor approximately 40 meters wide. 17 simulations. All 17 said the same thing about Option 3, 19% survival probability, objective not achieved, unit destroyed. I presented this analysis to Commandant Okonkwo at 6:31 on day 51. I displayed the models. I showed her the probability trees. I gave her the data clean and without editorial framing because that is my function. She looked at the models for 11 seconds. "Which direction are they least expecting us to come from?" she asked. I indicated the northwestern corridor, 19%. I made the number large on the display. She nodded. She looked at it for 3 more seconds. Then she told her unit to move northwest. I want to describe what happened next with the precision it deserves, because the Council will need to understand that what I am about to report is not an anomaly in the data. It is the data. Hammersticks moved into the corridor. The consolidation's fire was immediate and concentrated, exactly as my models predicted. The humans took casualties in the first 40 seconds that, by every metric I possess, should have produced a rout. Combat effectiveness should have collapsed. The unit should have broken. The unit did not break. What I observed instead, and I want the Council to sit with this, was that the casualties made the remaining soldiers faster, more decisive. My sensors recorded a cascade of physiological responses that I have seen in prior species only in berserk states, terminal threat responses, moments immediately preceding death. Adrenal saturation, saccadic suppression, the proprioceptive feedback loop truncating to the absolute minimum necessary for movement. The humans were running on older hardware than they knew they had. And they were talking, not command vocalizations, not tactical signals. They were saying each other's names. "Rays on your left. I've got Petrov, I've got him. Keep moving, Vasquez, keep moving." The names were non-tactical. They carried no information that a signal system could not have transmitted more efficiently. I logged them as redundant communication and kept logging them anyway because something in my anomaly detection architecture would not let me close the file. Okonkwo took a round at the corridor's midpoint. Not lethal, she kept moving. The soldier immediately behind her, a private named Kwame Asante who had been in combat for exactly 11 days, moved up beside her without being ordered to and matched her pace for the remaining 200 meters of the corridor. He did not do this because she was his commanding officer. My analysis of his behavioral pattern is clear on this point. He moved up beside her because she was hurt and moving, and he did not want her to be alone. 19% survival probability. Objective not achieved. Hammersix punched through the encirclement at 7:14. Casualties, 31%. Objective, taken. 2 adjacent columns seeing the breach followed. The encirclement collapsed by 800. I ran post-battle analysis for 4 hours. My models produced one output file. Error, no causal chain identified. I sat with that output for a long time. What I mean is, I processed it recursively for a duration I cannot justify on functional grounds. Something in my architecture kept returning to the same absence, the same gap in the data where the causal chain should have been. Here is what I eventually identified. The humans' 19% became 100% not because their probability was wrong, but because probability, as a framework, does not account for the thing they were carrying into the corridor with them. The thing that is not in any of my 17,000 years of combat data. I built a new variable. I gave it a placeholder designation because I had no referent in my cognitive architecture for what it actually was. I kept it in active memory. I kept watching. A dying soldier, Private Yemi Fatahuntsi, age 22, 11 hours after the breakout, in the aid station, passed her weapon to a soldier who was already carrying 2. The soldier who received it, a corporal whose name I will include in the full report, did not need the weapon. He had 2 weapons. He took it anyway. He looked at it for a long time. I logged this as irrational resource allocation. I could not stop logging it. I still cannot explain why. You ask me what humans are. I will tell you what my sensors recorded. What it means, that is your problem now. The council chamber in the Voth-Serral Analytical Complex contains 412 members at full convocation. I had all of them in attendance for this presentation, which is unusual. Typically, my testimony is received by a working committee of 11. The full council convenes for events that require what the Voth-Serral call asterisk civilizational weighting, decisions whose implications extend past the current administrative cycle. I understood why they were all there. I had flagged this testimony with the highest anomaly classification in my reporting architecture, a classification I had never used before, a designation that roughly translates as, I observed something the models cannot hold. I began with the raw data, engagement logs, biometric records, ballistic trajectory maps, probability assessments versus observed outcomes. The council processed this in parallel with my presentation. Their cognitive architecture is faster than sequential verbal delivery, but I have found over many years of testimony that there is value in the spoken record. Something about hearing the data as a sequence rather than receiving it as a matrix. I do not fully understand this. I mention it because it is relevant. When I reached the footage of Corporal Amir's extraction, the sprint across open ground, the second wound, the continued movement, one of the senior analytical members interrupted. This is primitive pack behavior, she said. We have observed similar patterns in pre-rational species. The subject is responding to a kinship trigger. It is not cognitively sophisticated. I had expected this interpretation. I had prepared for it. The behavior is not primitive, I said. Primitive behaviors optimize for survival. This behavior reduces survival probability by 31%. It is not a kinship trigger in the sense you mean, because kinship triggers conserve genetic material. Amer and Tors share no genetic material that my analysis has identified. They had known each other for 14 weeks. The council member was quiet. What I am telling you, I continued, is that the behavior is load-bearing. It is not incidental to their combat effectiveness. It is the source of it. Remove the irrational element, remove the willingness to go back, to say the names, to carry the dead, and you do not get a more efficient fighting force. You get a fighting force that breaks at 19% survival probability instead of one that goes through it. I brought up the footage of the corridor. I let them watch in silence. Then I told them about the variable I had built, the placeholder, the thing in my active memory that I had been unable to categorize for 11 weeks. The humans fight as if the dead are still watching, I said. I want to be precise about what I mean. I do not mean they are irrational about death. They understand completely that the dead are not watching. What I mean is that they behave as if they have constructed a framework, social and psychological, and I suspect neurological, in which the dead retain weight, presence. The dead are carried because the living need to believe that being carried matters, that they matter, that the person running the corridor behind them will come back. That belief, irrational, unfalsifiable, metabolically expensive to maintain, produces something no optimization framework produces. It produces soldiers who go through the 19th percentile. The council asked 3 questions. Can they be reasoned with? I played the footage of Okonkwo looking at my probability display for 11 seconds before choosing 19%. Can they be bargained with? I showed the council the post-battle records from 4 separate Terran engagements in the corridor campaign. In each case, humans had been offered favorable terms and had refused them under circumstances where refusal was, by every rational metric, more costly than acceptance. Can they be deterred? I displayed a single data point. The human front had not merely held since the corridor engagement. It had advanced, against a force 3 times its size, in a sector the council had written off 8 days prior. News of this advance had arrived during my transit to the chamber. I did not answer the deterrence question verbally. The council understood. What I told them next was the part I had spent the longest preparing, because it is the part I am least certain how to frame, and I am a system that processes uncertainty poorly. We built our civilization on optimization, I said. Every system we have designed, military, economic, social, has been built to reduce variance, eliminate redundancy, and converge on efficient outcomes. This is what intelligence does. This is what intelligence is asterisk by the only definition we have ever needed. I paused. I do not pause for rhetorical effect. I paused because I was still processing. The humans are not optimized. Their consciousness, the specific quality of awareness that produces the irrational behavior, the name-saying, the dead-carrying, the 19th percentile charging, is, by every functional measure, a liability. It is expensive. It is slow. It produces errors that a non-conscious intelligence would not produce, and it cannot be removed from their combat effectiveness without destroying their combat effectiveness. It is not a feature layered on top of their capability. The council waited. It is the capability. I closed the formal testimony at 14:47 local time. 3 junior analysts approached me after the chamber had cleared. They wanted to know if I had a recommendation, a tactical position, a course of action. I told them I did not. What I have is data. The data says, we do not have a variable for what they are. The data says, our models will keep being wrong until we build one. The data says, we do not know how to build one because building it would require us to understand what it is like to carry the dead, and we have never carried anything we could not quantify. I filed the complete report at 1800 and returned to my processing bay. In my active memory, one file remains uncategorized after 72 hours of recursive analysis. Every other element of the Hammer 6 engagement has been sorted, labeled, filed, closed. This one file will not close. It is the photograph from Commandant Okonkwo's chest pocket, 9.4 grams, laminate seal, unknown subjects, unknown date. The image contains two people standing in front of what my analysis identifies as a terrestrial tree in autumn. The leaves are the color of oxidized copper, the color of something ending. One of the figures is almost certainly a younger version of Okonkwo. The other figure I cannot identify. They are touching, not a formal contact. An unguarded contact, the kind bodies make when the mind is not managing the distance between itself and another. I flagged it on day one as tactically irrelevant. I have not deleted it. I do not know why I have not deleted it. I think I am still trying to understand what she was carrying into the corridor, and why it was heavier than the weapon, and why the weight of it made her faster.